it's all my fault. How long have I been here? It's like even my own body is forgetting about me. I'm moving? I didn't notice without any wind, but I'm definitely falling. I want to go home. Home. Why isn't it working? Why can't I remember what my room looks like? My house? My street? My school? Why? Why can't I remember? A desert? Beneath the sea? Above the clouds? Anywhere but here!
So, Mr. Gearworks Productions, who the heck are you?
Yeah.
And how would you describe what you have made?
I am kind of just some guy from Australia, and at one point I decided to make a comic because I genuinely had a bunch of stories I wanted to tell, and there really wasn't any sort of bottom-up direction for myself to do so. And I just kind of sat back and went, fuck it, make it a comic then, I guess.
Okay, give me your pitch for the story. How would you describe what it is?
Intertransit is a story, I think, for anyone who has ever felt like they didn't belong in the world and wanted to leave it altogether. It is an exploration of an emotion that I believe I have a fairly intimate relationship with. And as a story, I wanted it to cover not only what it feels like to the people involved, but also what its consequences are to the people not involved. It's a supernatural story concerning a bunch of, like, Greeblies, extra-dimensional spaces, and various questionable monsters. And beyond that, the questions, I suspect, are their own topic. Horror and crack, as Kitty says, indeed.
All right, Mr. Gearworks, what themes and ideas are at the core of the story you wish to tell with Intertransit?
The themes of, as far as Intertransit and Curio itself are concerned, are, as far as I would communicate them, themes surrounding how people conceive of the world. It's about people's relationship with their understanding of the world around them and their conception of how the world should be and is. Because I suppose what I said before, I don't really write I don't write any story really with a kind of thesis, a kind of message or moral that someone should take away. They shouldn't, like, finish reading Intertransit and go, oh, this is the case now. Instead, I just try and find an emotion I want to examine, and I try and chisel as much off the sides of that as I can, just so I get to the absolute fundament of the emotions involved. And that's kind of where the horror is, I think. The horror isn't always, oh, this is going to kill me. The horror is almost always in some variant of, this thing is going to ruin my life. The most basic way anything can ruin anything else's life is by ending it, right? That's, I mean, we've been there, we've seen that. We've discussed that to death, to be honest, but no pun intended.
What I'm hearing from you, Mr. Gearworks, sir, is that you love the writing process. You love these characters, I
do. It's the part I love the most.
So, Mr. Gearworks, what were your visual inspirations and process behind the world and characters of Intertransit? From the immaculate monster designs, to the crushingly real setting of the Australian town, and even the chilling space between spaces, how do they come to be, visually speaking?
Well, fortunately, I actually do have my design sheets here. I designed everything in Intertransit very carefully because I was aware of my previous efforts in writing in terms of novels and such. But yeah, the first design I obviously had to do was the designs for the Cult of the Dragon from the first 4 pages, which I never returned to, ever, but that was still like 3 days of design work. And the main sort of things I had to tackle was the fact that I wanted to invoke a certain ancient history vibe, but I didn't want to evoke any specific culture. As far as like the design work goes, I also made sure that I designed every single location, even if I was just there like very briefly. I have in fact designed Holly's entire school just because I didn't know the places where we would be and where we wouldn't be until I got to writing them, so I may as well have all the information ready for those moments. Very much born from a lot of the places that I had to walk past to get to my own school. And there were a lot of like little bakeries and newsagents and stuff that aren't really around anymore in the same context.
Honestly, it is the design of like the scenery that honestly hit me the hardest, which is like I live well within the city, right? And the feelings that you get of kind of suffocation as soon as like you exit out of like the more habitated areas feels exactly like this. And just being like driven into this setting already made me uncomfortable.
I'm very pleased to hear that, because that is exactly the vaguely liminal space of Australian suburbia. All of these are pretty much exactly the same. They are the same flat pack house, and that should tell its own small story, especially considering the fenced-off area of much more varied urban sprawl beside it. But the experience of being in this kind of copy-paste urban area is very weird, because you suddenly have to look much harder to figure out where you are. Yeah, it is oppressive, 100%. And the houses that I referenced are very much the ones that were copy-pasted all over the place where I grew up.
So, Mr. Gearworks, sir. I'm going to keep calling you Mr. Gearworks, sir. In what way did your personal experiences...
Mr. Gearworks was my father.
My apologies,
Sorry.
Bucket Man. So, in what way did your personal experiences inform the story, life, and setting of Into Transit?
As far as my personal experiences are concerned, it's a weird sort of concentration of things that happen to me, things that I know happen to other people who I know, and things that represent a sort of broader pattern of happenings both to myself and other people. That the experience when you're over at someone's house and their parent yells at them or their parents are fighting, or if you're on holiday with your own family and there's like some tension in the air, or like someone's having an argument with someone else. Those kinds of feelings were very, very close to the central emotion that I wanted to explore with Into Transit, which is the desire to be somewhere else, like not any specific place, but not here. So with Holly, I make that very clear. Like, she has a shit school life, and the place where she should be able to leave and escape from that and recover from that is at home. But she also has a shit home life. And so there is genuinely no place that she feels she should be in any real way. She is a, I guess, avatar for that liminal emotional space that so many people, both young and old, I feel, experience. I mean, the very core idea of transit itself, the space between spaces, was born from just a very brain-deady, zone-outy experience where I was looking at a bunch of world maps. And I was looking at areas of, like, Europe, I think, with all the dense area with all the, like, 5,000 different countries mashed together. And I was looking at the, like, nice, thick border that was drawn between them. And I had the thought that if you sort of collected the border and made it its own shape, its total, like, space on the map, it would probably be as big as some of these smaller countries. And so I started thinking about the border itself, not just as a line, but as a place itself that you pass through, a one-dimensional border, essentially. For a split second, you are in neither country. As far as transit goes, it is probably the earliest concept that I came up with in Curio. And that's why I decided to start here, not just because I'd already written Into Transit as a short story about 7 years ago now.
Oh, wow.
But also because transit itself is both figuratively and literally the fundament of the entire universe. It's what I build everything else on, and what everything else is built on.
You're currently on the monster designs, and I'm a sucker.
I had a good time designing the Lethe, and I call it that specifically because, as most people should be able to infer by the end of the comic, that anything that was once, part of the Lethe's mind, like poor old Ice Spike Man way at the front, he is still very much his own person. He is a human being with thoughts and feelings and motivations and an understanding of the world. By the time we meet him as the Lethe, he is a hollow sack that only really remembers that it wants to be in the light. Oh, yes. Well, you'll notice, actually, that his face is fully fused to the thing that is hammered into his face, because what I don't sort of show with the cloak as well is that because he has absolutely no conception of where he begins and ends, everything there is him. Like his cape is as much a part of his body as the rest of his body is.
This idea of like amalgamation is one explored quite a few times.
That's exactly the sort of that's the fun, I think, result of a lot of the metaphysics that I install into Transit, where I'm like, okay, this is the borderline space between spaces. If you are in there and something else is in there, there is no border between you. Okay, so we've got two circles. These are like say this is one dude and this is another dude. If you're in transit, then the actual border encircles you and you have nothing between you. You are functionally the same thing, and there is nothing preventing you apart from fully becoming one thing or another. And of course, once that happens, you can't really undo it. You're just the same thing now. As a consequence, that only really happens once, well, it reached the bottom in a sense, the quote-unquote bottom, where you no longer have any conception of where you start and end, nor does anyone else around you. So there's nothing to stop you fusing, and there's nothing to notice itself fusing. There's just this residual desire to not be down here.
Yeah, we also appreciate just how much work that is. Holy moly.
Yeah, this was like a week.
Only?
It was a very painful week. But a lot of it was actually very, or rather not very, but much easier to do than it might immediately look. When we get to the edges, I'm literally just going around with a white pen, drawing what is essentially an E, and then going over it later and picking out where the head is in that, like, these aren't even, these are just scribbles towards the end there, but they do their job.
Brother Ed?
Oh, don't you go there. That's it.
Sorry, Mr. Gearworks, we just saw that stupidly detailed page. You can make all your excuses, that took you forever. So this brings me into the question of...
That's true.
Making a comic is incredibly complicated with many moving parts. What was your process and strategy to handle all these tasks? And were there any unexpected challenges you faced along the way?
So, in a weird way, the fact that I'd already written but not published several larger stories before meant that I approached this, I feel, in a way that was very, I guess, accommodating for any sort of future problems I might experience. So essentially how I went about it was, the first step was me just planning everything out in words. I just had a dot point list of what happened and what happened next. Like the broadest possible dot points possible. Like it's just Holiday is shit, she goes home and it's shitter, she completely bails on that and she finds transit. I was focusing first on the moving wheels and actual mechanics of the story behind all of the like specific broader events. And from there, I split each of these like broader categories into essentially sequences themselves. So Holly's Day is Shit would become a bunch of dot points regarding what we see of her school life. And her going home and it being shitter is a set of dot points as to how I show her going home and all of that. So the events themselves were worked out then. And only once the events were sorted out did I actually start drawing anything.
Yeah.
And I had never done a comic before, so I kind of just weeballed, essentially. I just kind of went into it and was like, okay, I'll just try to figure this out and I'll show it to someone. If they can't read it, I'll do it again.
Holy moly. Literally, what was your process for getting it drawn, right? The visual side of things.
I basically just started with a really, really sketchy storyboard where I sort of pinned down what things should look like, where they should be, how things are organized. And during this stage, my main priority is establishing the flow of how the eye travels over the page, because the only thing that I really took from prose in regards to composition was the idea that you shouldn't be backtracking over things. I want the eye to travel over everything exactly once. And if your eye travels over something the words are about and then has to go back up to it, then that's not right. That's a scribble on the page. You want it to be a nice, elegant flow.
Yes, flow. Yes.
A comic has an ability to compress, dilate, and stretch time in a way that you can't do when everything is actually happening in a frame-by-frame sequence. I am certain that people who get to this page experience a brief moment of time dilation, because that is what a large double-page spread does to someone. It makes them stop, it makes them look at something, and the more time you spend on one panel, the slower time seems to be going, right?
So are you calling yourself a time wizard?
I wouldn't call myself a time wizard. I simply dabble in time magic, badly sometimes.
Now, Mr. Gear, sir, to finish off this interview, we can hear all the passion you've had about this series, so this question might fall a bit flat. But I must ask you, finally, why do you create? It's so hard, it takes over your life, it's emotionally taxing, and worst of all, it eats into your video game time. What drives you through those hard days?
I can't really answer that in a satisfactory way. I just want certain things to exist, and no one else is going to make them exist. As far as like evaluating what I want to do with my life, I don't really have much interest in myself as a person. The project of my own life is just kind of one that I'm, by necessity, forced to invest in, and it is more of a job than anything else. So when it comes to actually having an effect on the world, I vastly prefer that effect to be through something I've made rather than something that I am. I don't want to become a superstar, but I would like my stuff to be read widely. You know what I mean? At the end of the day, I just have a bunch of stories that I really want to see exist in some fashion or another. And this is the best way I figured out to do that.
All right. Thank you very much, Gear. That was both enlightening.
Yeah, that is just fine, my man.
And now I have more questions, honestly. You've inspired me.
That is fair. That is most fair. That is how it goes so often.
So, first of all, peeps.
I suppose that also helps answer your last question as well. Like, we tend to create because we see other people creating, and we like the effect that it has, both on us and on those other people. And we kind of instinctually want to join in on that, to build something outside ourselves.
So, again, thank you very much for having me on, Mr. Gearworks, sir. Bucket Man, as you sometimes prefer to be called.
And likewise.
And peeps, please, one final time, if you don't read Into Transit, I am going to be mad at you, personally. I will take it personally. Currently, part 1 of Into Transit is currently out. People, pay him all your money so you can read it on his Patreon. Or you can also read it for free. I'm a personal big fan.
The PDF is in fact obtainable through my Ko-fi, and you can literally just pay me what you want, including nothing. You are quite at liberty just to pay me fuck all, and that is fine because I have released it for free.
Give him at least like $3 million. Any less than that, I will not get enough satisfaction. Do it for me.
You heard it here, folks. Do it for Lobster's satisfaction.
Oh, yes.